Welcome, everybody. Excited to have you here for this Spark session. And as you can see, I've got Lane Houk up on the screen with me today. Lane, really excited to have you here and talk about SEO and AEO and all that fun type of stuff. For those of you that don't know Lane, Lane and I have known each other now for a number of years. I'd hate to even imagine how many. And Lane is an absolutely amazing and brilliant mind when it comes to SEO. And he actually just recently put out a new book. In fact, he and I were having dinner in Cancun not too long ago. I guess it was a few months ago, talking about that book, and it's now out. And I said, "Hey, Lane, I'd love to bring you on and talk to our community. I know we've got lots of questions that come up all the time about SEO. How do we do SEO in this new age of AI?" And so Lane offered to go ahead and share some of his knowledge with us today. So we're going to do that. The general plan, which always is open to discussion, but is to chat for a bit with Lane, talk about AI and SEO, and then open it up for some Q&A as well. So Lane, I'm sure I butchered that as an introduction. You could probably do a lot better. Welcome. Looks like you're at home in Colorado. Am I guessing that right based on the whiteness I see in the background?
Yeah, yeah, home in Colorado. Thanks, Jonathan. Great to be with you and your audience here. Home in Colorado. Actually, we're leaving this afternoon for Steamboat Springs for a little celebration weekend. It's my son's 25th birthday, and my birthday is this coming week. So we're gonna spend the weekend together as a family. But really excited to spend this time with you and your audience.
Well, thank you. Happy early birthday. That's very cool.
Thank
Love
you.
that.
Yeah,
Love that.
54 years old. Boy, oh boy.
You're a youngin'. What can I say, you know? Awesome. Well, Lane, do us a favor for those that don't know you. Would you give us just a little bit of background? I know you, and you know when I have SEO questions, I pick up the phone and go, "Hey, Lane, help me out." But for those that may not be familiar with you, give us a little bit of background. The work you've done. Why? Tell everybody, I guess, why do I trust you so much when it comes to SEO?
Sure, awesome. Well, I'd be happy to share a little bit of that background. Um, I built a digital agency, started that in 2010, and we were basically a website SEO company and provided that kind of on a recurring basis to businesses directly. In 2015, I saw some opportunities, some gaps in the SEO industry. Took what I had learned thus far in the industry and started building a software company called Signal Genesis, which I actually sold and exited last year. We
Hmm.
launched Signal Genesis in 2018, and that platform took my intellectual property, my business partner Matt's his intellectual property. We leveraged the digital PR industry, if you will, and created a new software platform that was a signal generation platform that leveraged digital PR, news, and media, and the authority that those websites have, and launched that software platform to the agency market. In other words, we built that for agencies to be able to then use inside of their SEO campaigns at scale, for small to large agencies. Um, and then alongside of that software venture, Signal Genesis, I also opened up a white label marketing division where we do white label websites, SEO, PPC, and social media for other agencies as well. I still have the agency. I sold the software company last year to Search Atlas Group, and am now just kind of uniquely focused on our white label agency called Quantum Agency. Um, so I've been doing SEO now for 15 years, initially for directly to businesses, and then for the last, I guess, 8 years, seven years, directly more for agencies, and then also with that software platform. Along the way, I've actually learned a lot. I've implemented SEO at scale, done SEO campaigns for thousands and thousands of businesses. When we sold Signal Genesis, we had over 20,000 businesses in the platform and about 1,000 agencies that were actually using the platform. So I've been able to see, SEO um, uh, change, and evolve
Hmm.
over the last, 10 years or so. It's obviously changed a lot, and now, over the last 3 years, we've seen the advent of the new AI LLM platforms. Obviously, you've done a phenomenal job in just kind of going into that industry and helping educate businesses and agencies alike around all the nuances and all the different technology that's out there. But obviously, all of that has dramatically affected what we know as search behavior, right?
Hmm.
People have been going to Google, for the last 20 plus years. So search behavior was very, very much cemented in Google. They've been the dominant player. Of course, there's other search engines like Bing that have actually become more relevant lately with LLMs because Bing actually does drive a lot of the ChatGPT responses and we've obviously seen a pretty big evolution in what's happening in search. We've seen a pretty fast departure in terms of search behavior,
Hmm.
leaving traditional Google search and going to the likes of ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and doing the searches there. Almost over 800 million searches weekly happening in ChatGPT alone. And that has, now we've actually seen just as of late, ChatGPT is actually losing a little bit of their momentum, while some others are actually, Gemini, is obviously taking
Hmm.
some market share back. I see, Google obviously leveraging its ecosystem and improving the Gemini platform. But, by and large, what we're seeing is a pretty fast and large departure from traditional search and going over to the LLMs like ChatGPT and the like. And what that does is it's had a very immediate and in some ways substantial effect on businesses that were getting traffic from traditional Google search. That traffic has moved in some ways, and that means they've lost traffic, they've lost leads, and they've obviously, as a result, lost revenue if they're not showing up in Chat GPT or the like. So that's a quick synopsis of 15 years in the industry and bringing us up to current. What I decided to do about a year ago was to get started on writing a book to help develop a framework so that businesses and or agencies could have a framework and an implementable guide on how to get found in the LLMs because it is a new discipline.
Yeah.
There's most certainly some crossover from traditional SEO best practices that cross over into LLM visibility. But there most certainly are new things that must be done that the LLMs look for that traditional search bots or crawlers aren't looking for. And so I launched my book in, I think October 1 was about the launch date, the Spark framework. And it truly is a framework, a blueprint on how businesses or agencies can implement specific tasks and specific strategies into getting found in for their company or for their clients, depending on what the application is there. So that kind of brings us up to current, and happy to be here today and just share, whatever I can to help your audience learn more about this all important topic because it is absolutely changing commerce and changing how businesses approach their online digital presence.
Well, the first question I want to really ask you, Lane, is related to traditionally. We looked, and again, you and I met when I had my agency, you had your agency. Again, that was back in the early 2020, 2021. And back then, the thing, if you were a chiropractor and you were in Jacksonville, Florida, you wanted to rank for best chiropractor in Jacksonville or Jacksonville chiropractor or whatever. And then we started hearing about EEAT from Google, experience and authority and trust, and I'm missing one of the E's, expertise. And it strikes me that EEAT model still is probably really relevant, but that the best chiropractor in Jacksonville may not be anymore from a keyword perspective. Is my perspective right there, or am I missing something as we take a look at how AI is impacting what matters today when it comes to SEO?
Yeah, for sure. EEAT is definitely highly relevant today in LLM visibility. I'd say the biggest difference is that, well, number one, I mean, if you just compare and you go to a Google search bar and you type in, Jacksonville chiropractors or best Jacksonville chiropractors, and you get that search result, and then you move over to, another window and you go to ChatGPT and you type in, either the same exact search. Although, obviously we know that people are more using natural language
Right.
in search queries inside ChatGPT. In fact, they oftentimes might just be using the microphone on their phone and going, I'm
That's
looking.
me.
I have back pain and I need the best chiropractor in Jacksonville with great reviews. They might actually just that might be the actual query in Chat GPT, whereas we go to Google and we just type in best Jacksonville chiropractor. So there is a measurable difference between what people type in a Google search query versus what they search for inside of an LLM. But um, just taking the dramatic differences in those result pages, right? On a Google search result, you're going to get a couple of ads on top. Pretty quickly, you'll get three different local businesses and their map listings inside the Google Maps ecosystem. Below that, you'll get probably 10 blue links, with different websites that match the query. And you might even get some videos and some images, interspersed in there.
Hmm.
You might get a generative AI overview, but you're going to get a lot of information all on that one Google search result page. And obviously, you can go to page two and then go to
Sure.
page three and page four and page five and so on.
But
Move
we
over to
know nobody ever did that.
ChatGPT. Right,
Yeah.
and no one ever did that, but I mean, you still got all that data.
Sure, it was there. Yeah.
But even in just on one page inside Google Search, there's still a lot more information. And if we go over to ChatGPT, do that same query, we might get three recommendations from ChatGPT versus all that other information that we get in a Google search. So the amount of recommendations that the LLMs are providing the searcher are dramatically less. Okay. You have anywhere from 10 to 20 different opportunities to show up on page one in a Google search result still today. And you
Hmm.
may have at most five opportunities to show up in a ChatGPT responsive query.
Mm.
Right. And so so businesses are now competing inside the LLMs for a couple of spots versus 15 to 20. That alone is a massive difference, which means, okay, well then how is the LLM actually processing and finding who to recommend if there's only going to be three or four versus 15?
Sure.
And so what they're doing is the LLMs are actually looking for real authority. And so EEAT lends itself to building authority. You demonstrating experience, expertise, authority, and trust through the EAT process. And by and large, you can only demonstrate EAT with content. There's really no way to demonstrate EAT without content. Okay, so you've got to have either video content or written content or audio content, some level of content that can then uh, fire off the EAT signals that the algorithms or the bots are looking for around that content. Does it demonstrate experience? Is there actual expertise demonstrated within the content, right?
Mm.
Uh, are there authority signals from the content? Is there a case study in the content that demonstrates real practical authority? So that's all stuff that we can put into content to demonstrate EAT. And then the LLMs are really looking at both footprint and website as a major source of authority or not. So the website has actually become even more important today than ever before because the LLMs are looking at that website and either seeing it as a source with depth
Hmm.
around a specific content topic or not. And that's, I think, where probably most businesses today are going to find that their websites are largely deficient when it comes to demonstrating authority to the LLMs, where you could easily show up in a local search result with your Google listing with a more, let's say, a weaker website, maybe less depth of the website, but Google's algorithm is looking for different types of signals in the LLMs, and you can show up in a local map result, without having you could actually have a pretty weak website. Like we find businesses all the time that have what I would call a very weak website, but still doing pretty well in local search results. And so the LLMs aren't going to produce a map ecosystem result. They're looking for real authority, and they're only going to return three or four of those, and the website and the footprint kind of combined are at a very high level are what they're looking for. The Spark framework starts to break that down into different chunks or components of what the LLMs are actually looking for when it comes to providing a response to a query.
You mentioned footprint, and I want to clarify on this. I don't necessarily know the answer, but I'll say the old days, which a couple of years ago, all we really seemed to care about was the websites because things we did online, other than maybe YouTube videos, didn't seem to have much impact, or at least that was my perspective. That, it was really, if you were going to do content marketing, focus on blog posts and articles and things like that, because, social media, for example, wasn't going to do. When you talk about footprint with AI and AI's ability to read more, I don't know, read more, but just do things differently, is social media part of that now, as part of that footprint or not?
It has a little bit, but not much.
Okay,
Social
that's
media
fair.
is still, one of those weaker components where it's just not going to have that much effect on the LLMs, like it doesn't also have on search. Where social media can have a big impact in both traditional search and in LLM visibility is in the engagement. And so
Hmm.
it's really about the engagement more than anything else. You could post every day, you could post 6 times a day, but as you know, if no one's liking, commenting, sharing, reposting your content, then it's almost 100% ignored, other than whoever sees it with their own eyes. But even the algorithms are greatly diminishing the reach of
Sure.
social media posts as well. So it has a very, de minimis type of impact, other than if you can really get good engagement. And then LLMs are looking at I would call different social media platforms where, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram might get activity and action in traditional search. We're looking at things like Quora,
Hmm.
Reddit, Medium, those high authority blogging platforms where you get engagement there can really affect the LLM visibility, especially if you're in a Reddit or a Quora thread where you're mentioned, your company is cited, as a kind of a response and a comment to, a query. Those authoritative Reddit and Quora threads are definitely being examined by the LLMs as they look for as they do their research around a query.
I'd say that's one of the things I notice different even when I'm, tracking what my own search and trying to figure that out. It's amazing to me, traditionally my websites and my video on YouTube, that still always is still ranking very well. But newer, at least to me, was the Reddit and Quora that you just talked about. I mean, I admit I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, but I'm thinking based on what you shared, what I've learned from you, and what I'm seeing just even in search results that being on Reddit and making some posts occasionally, not that we treat it like social media, but having answering people's questions and that is still really relevant. That
Mhm.
brings me to another question as a business owner when we're trying to figure out, we need to create content. What type of content do we create for a footprint? In the past, I know one of the things that I've always found effective, I'm not sure if it still would be, was Marcus Sheridan's book, They Ask You Answer. That if, you literally go out and start answering questions that your audience is asking. And for those not familiar with Marcus's book, the basic premise is really simple. Don't overthink it. Take the questions that your audience is asking and then answer them. And from an SEO perspective, that looks like, I think, tell me if I'm right, Lane, because I may not be, but blog posts and video. And if you answer that, is that still important today? And if
100%.
somebody's on the call or watching the replay going, how do I do this? Is that still a good strategy or has that changed?
I would say it's changed. It's still a good strategy. It's just that it's evolved and maybe
Okay.
gotten, you can get more comprehensive with it today. So to your point, Jonathan, the A in Spark, so
Hmm.
that stands for answer readiness. Okay. And
Oh,
so
okay. Perfect.
100%, these are answer engines, right? People are going to these engines to ask questions. And it's usually not like chiropractors near Jacksonville. It's usually, I have I have lower back pain and I'm not sure why, but I'm looking for a chiropractor or or an alternative practitioner who can help me with my back pain. Like the difference in the query there is huge, and it's using natural language
Right.
processing. And so um, so we've so yes, we want to be answering these questions, and the great news is that the data is available. Like we can go to ChatGPT, Claude, Manus, and we can actually query the LLM around what are all of the questions my market or my audience is asking, right? And we can get a very, very comprehensive list of questions. We can go to tools like Answer the Public, or Uber suggest, and we can use tools like that to get the questions as well. But the answer is yes. It's incredibly important. It's even more relevant now than it ever was before because we're actually talking about answer engines, and so we want to find out. We want to get the questions and answer those questions. One of the most important things that I think your audience can understand here is it'll be very simple to understand this, but we want to take our content on a page and address
Hmm.
one question.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay. Tell me more
Okay.
about that.
So let's just take chiropractor since we're on that topic, right? There's probably hundreds of actual questions that are relevant to a chiropractor's practice because you have questions around back pain, you have questions around neck pain, you have questions around cervical injury. I
Hmm.
mean, so they provide massage, they provide all sorts of different services, and then every one of those services and or um, uh, issues that they solve, for a patient, all have questions related to them. And so, we could have hundreds of questions. What we don't want to do is we don't want to take all of those questions and throw them all into one page or one big FAQ page, um, and think that that's going to suffice. Now, it's great to have an FAQ page that is very comprehensive. However, what I would do is I would then link to specific pages that have one question and one long answer to that question. So it's exhaustive around that specific question. I'm not saying you have to artificially make it longer than it needs to be, but make it an exhaustive answer to the question and address one question per page. Now, there's this acronym called ELAI.
Okay.
Uh, it's EILAI. So I'm sorry, it's so hard to say, but EILAI. So explain it like I'm a 5-year-old, or explain it like I'm an AI.
Oh, yes,
Okay. So you may have heard that acronym.
I have.
Ultimately, what you want to do, what that acronym is all about, is in the first 200 words of your page, you want to, like, your H2 heading or your H1 actually should be the question. So that would be the title of the blog article, is the actual verbatim question that you're answering. And then in the first 200 words of that page or that blog article, you're going to summarize the answer to the question as best as you can in 200 words or less. And you're going to include as many entities that are related to that question and answer as possible in those 200 words.
All right, so I need to
Okay.
interrupt you real quick because I've always been confused. I know this is great. I don't want you to stop, but what the heck is an entity?
Entity. It's a people, place, or thing, right? It's something,
Okay, thank you.
it's
Okay,
very simple. So Jonathan Mast is an entity. You as an individual are an entity. Whitebeard Strategies is also an entity, separate but also an entity. A frog is an entity. The Taj
gotcha.
Mahal is an entity. The White House is an entity. It's a place, right? Okay, and
Gotcha.
so
So that makes sense. Thank you. I
and,
hear that word all the time, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt because you're on a great
oh,
flow. I love where you're headed with this. So
yeah, this
sorry
is
about
really
that.
important. Okay, so we've gone from keyword optimization in traditional search to entity optimization in LLM visibility. The LLMs are looking for relationships. The traditional search crawlers are also doing this as well, but it's more enhanced or more important with what the LLMs are doing. But they're looking for relationships, right? And so, how is Jonathan associated with Whitebeard Strategies? Well, he's the founder and the CEO, right? And
Gotcha.
actually, the way that we can actually map these relationships in a very structural, definitive way is inside Wikidata. Okay. And so Wikidata is like the database for the LLMs, where traditional search Googlebot likes Wikipedia, the LLMs like Wikidata.
Okay. Okay.
Wikidata is basically like a big structured schema database. And in it, each entity can have its own item, and then the items have relationships to other items. which is how you map the relationships around an entity. And so if we just take, Whitebeard and Jonathan Mast, since we're on that topic, Jonathan Mast is an entity and an item in Wikidata. And then Whitebeard Strategies is also an entity and a separate item in Wikidata. And then those two are actually linked together through the relationship that Jonathan Mast has with Whitebeard Strategy, which would be he's the founder. He's also currently employed as the CEO. Okay.
Makes sense. So there's
We
multiple
want to make
relationships
those
there.
relationships explicit and very easy for the LLMs to digest and understand. Wikidata is how they understand relationships better than anything else. Certainly we can use unstructured data like a blog article to communicate the same relationship. Jonathan Mast, founder and CEO of Whitebeard Strategies, said this, right? And then we can link Jonathan Mast to, the maybe your founder or your CEO profile page on Whitebeard Strategies. That would be a one way to connect through a link to show a relationship, right? And so in traditional search, links, a link from one site to another site makes a connection, it creates a relationship in the network. Okay. And so entities are incredibly important because the LLMs and traditional search crawlers alike are looking for connections and relationships and how they are related and or how are they relevant. And so um, going back to our example of answering a question around a chiropractor type of question, answering it as quickly or as accurately as we can in the first 200 words of the page, and including related entities. Well, why related entities? Well, when the LLMs or traditional search crawlers are analyzing content, they're looking for relevance. Okay, that's the R in Spark, relevance signals. Okay,
Okay.
so the LLMs and the bots are looking for relevance. Well, how is this chiropractor and how is this question related in any given way? And so we want to explain relevance, and one of the ways that we can explicitly show relevance is through including related entities that the LLMs or bots are expecting to find. So, neck pain, back pain, maybe specific treatments that are recognized, maybe there's an article in Wikipedia around a specific topic, but we can create the relevance for the LLM by including related entities in our content, but especially in those first 200 words. The LLM will hit the first 200 words, and then if it either will go deeper into the rest of the page or it'll just bounce and go. So the crawlers are not going to expend the full search, um, the resources to crawl the whole page if it finds the first 200 words to be kind of a mess. And so that's
Makes
why the first
sense.
200 words are so important in the LLMs, is because it's not like Googlebot where it just hits the whole page and crawls the whole page. They hit the first 200 words and either they continue because they find it highly relevant and important, or they bounce and go off to the next source. And so that's why it's very important. And that's also when you go to relevance, why I say take a question and answer only one question on the whole page, because now your relevance is 100%, right? Your entire page is focused on one question and one answer.
That makes so much sense. I appreciate that greatly. That clarifies a whole lot to me about how to do this. And if I'm understanding right, that means that we're better off writing 5 blog posts about a particular topic, each of those answering one question about the topic, even if they're related, than we are to write one massive blog post and tie them all together from an SEO
Right.
perspective, with one caveat that in that first H1 in our title, it's the question, and then our first couple hundred words, we're answering that question so that the AI engines look at that and go, "Wow, this is indeed highly relevant to the title of the article, which is the question." Am I comprehending that right?
You got it. You dialed it right in. Yep, 100%. And then the only other thing I would say is that, like, let's say there's probably more than 5 questions. Let's just say around this topic, there's 5 questions really
Sure.
that were really important, right? And so you write a blog article around each of the 5 questions. So you have 5 blog articles. You can then interlink each of those blog articles to one of the other question blog articles, and so you connect them all together because they're all around the same topic, but each page is diving into the deep answer around one question, then just interlink them together, and then you provide now this comprehensive Q&A with 5 different pages that are all 100% relevant to one topic, one question, but then they're interlinked together to provide a more comprehensive answer to the greater topic or all the questions around the topic.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is even though blogging has been around forever, essentially, it's still incredibly relevant if we want to rank on search engines today. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would go, so then, to your point, then, blog articles are still important, actually more important today to demonstrate authority, which goes to our EAT components, right? Um, when you want to build and demonstrate topical authority, you want to cover the topic in an exhaustive manner. But obviously, like to our point here, we don't want to do it all in like one blog article. We want to actually break the whole topic down into subsections, questions around the topic and maybe so the next thing I would do is I would also publish case studies and white papers.
Okay.
Really go deep in demonstrating exhaustive authority around the topic. And obviously we can do this with a good AI, AI prompting, or a good framework around giving the AI a good framework for how to produce the content because we don't want to just go to ChatGPT and go, give me a white paper, like we want to really give it like, this is where your expertise really shines is around really giving these LLMs a framework for how to produce the outcome or the output that we're looking for. But yes, we can use the AI LLMs to actually help us produce exhaustive content around an entire topic, and then break that out into blog articles, press releases, white papers, case studies, and then also reviews. I
Mm.
think a lot of businesses really underutilize their reviews and don't like we know we want to get reviews to our Google business listing. And by the way, I'd also say, as much as I hate to say this, Yelp is really important right now for local businesses to get reviews on because Yelp is being searched by ChatGPT as an authoritative reference around local business queries. And so if you don't have Yelp reviews, you're actually you could have the best rating and reputation and hundreds of reviews in your Google business profile, but if you don't have a Yelp presence right now, you're actually behind because ChatGPT especially likes to look at Yelp reviews. I don't like it,
Mm.
but that's what they're doing, and hopefully that changes. But for now, that Yelp
Well,
reviews are.
this
But
isn't
going
necessarily
back
about
to
what
you,
we like. This is about what works. I mean, as businesses, how do we
100%.
get ranked? And we need to know what works. That brings up two questions, and I'll ask the first one. I'll ask them in reverse order, but I'll tell you both of them. One, how about video content? How does that fit in? Does it follow the same format? And two, I know what everybody wants to know on this call is will Google and search AI engines index AI content? In other words, if I use AI to help me write a blog post, not write the whole thing and just send it in, but I use it to help me do the heavy lifting, is that going to get ranked? So one, is video relevant? And two, what about AI and does that matter?
Yes, so video is highly relevant. In fact, if you go into a lot of your searches in Perplexity or ChatGPT, you can see them going to YouTube and looking for, that is one of the sources that it's looking for, responses to the query. So 100% video content is really important. Video content linked into that overall exhaustive, topical authority approach.
Hmm.
So video should be included as part of the content, and that video content then can obviously link to other relevant blog articles, other relevant white papers or case studies that are all part of your approach to an exhaustive approach to a topic, right? And that's what you have to do today for more for LLM visibility. Local SEO really doesn't require this still, and I don't think that's going to change. I think that local SEO is still going to be a little bit of a different game inside traditional Google search and local SEO, but for LLM visibility, they're looking for like the experts, the authorities in a
Makes sense.
space. And so video content is very important. And then the other part of your question was what, Jonathan?
AI. Can I use AI
Oh,
to help? I mean, I know the answer, but I know
yeah,
some
yeah.
my audience is concerned about that.
The
If I
test
use
is
AI to help me write that blog post, to help me write that video script, is Google and the search engines, are they going to pay any attention to me?
the answer is yes, or possibly, possibly no. The test is not whether the content was written by AI.
Thank
Just
you.
simply not. The test is really more around eat. If you really want to look at what content is actually good and digested and or ingested by the LLMs, retrieved, um, it's authoritative content that demonstrates eat, but
Hmm.
it's not just that one piece of content. Now they're looking at these LLMs can look at the entire picture in fractions of a second, right? And so you, you
Exactly.
it's really about not just the piece of content, it's more about how is that one piece of content fitting into the overall topical authority approach that you're taking around your website and your overall online footprint, because your website becomes the knowledge hub in LLM
Mm.
visibility, but that content also has to get off of your website. You need to have a content publication, content syndication strategy, which helps with building platform authority so that you actually, the LLM see your content. And has been relevant in traditional search for years and years as well. Um, but it's just more, it's a more robust strategy with LLM where you're getting that content on your site as the knowledge hub, but that content also is getting pushed and syndicated out to other places to bring authority in to show that that content is actually worthwhile to be published elsewhere, not just on your site. Other places, other people, other websites want to put your content on their site because it's valuable. It demonstrates EAT.
Really good. Now, one thing we haven't talked about today, and I don't know if it fits in or if it's the same or not, one of my favorite tools is Perplexity, which is more of an AI search engine than anything else. How does this whole discussion relate to Perplexity, which, again, in my opinion, is what Google should have done when they first started? I love Google products, AI products now, but I didn't for a long time. How does Perplexity fit into this whole discussion, or is it an entirely different animal?
Nope, it fits right in the same discussion as ChatGPT. I mean,
Okay.
to your point, I love Perplexity too. That's Perplexity has become my new search engine. Like when I want to search anything, I go to Perplexity and let Perplexity do its deep and wide research, and then versus Google. I mean, the only thing I use Google search now for is still for local businesses. When I'm looking for a local business, I still go into the map ecosystem or traditional Google search and you do it there. But everything that I want research for, if I want recommendations, if I'm doing product inquiries, around a topic, around a company, if I want to like do deep research around a company, Perplexity is the engine, right? And so everything we're talking about here, everything in the Spark framework relates to ChatGPT and Perplexity, alike. Claude, Gemini, they're all different versions of of kind of the same technology. Um, so yeah, everything fits right into the same thing for Perplexity as ChatGPT.
Gotcha. Okay, very, very helpful. We got a couple questions in the chat, if you don't mind, I'll ask. And that
Sure.
one is, would you still consider or look at NLP terms for an article if you're writing a blog post or an article? Are those NLP terms relevant?
Yes, absolutely. That's the answer readiness component of the Spark framework. And yes, we want to use natural language processing, which is what NLP stands for, because
Thank you.
that's how people are actually utilizing the LLMs, is they're using their natural language, right? Like you and I don't, I don't go to Jonathan and go, Jonathan, best chiropractor Jacksonville,
Right.
right? I go to Jonathan. I go, hey, Jonathan, do you know or do you have it? Know any or recommend any chiropractors in the Jacksonville area? That's natural language on how I would talk to Jonathan, right? And so, yes, we want to use NLP in all of our traditional SEO and our LLM SEO or LLM AEO strategies, because that's how people are actually leveraging the platforms more than anything else. And the bots, the crawlers are looking for that in natural language. The old days of optimizing for best chiropractor Jacksonville are largely over. Yes,
So good.
Even in SEO, we've been focusing on entities and questions. for the better part of 5 to 6 years already. Okay. Um, and so we still track for keyword rankings because that's how kind of traditional search traffic is still measured. But from a content strategy standpoint, we haven't been using keywords like that in our strategy for 4 to 5 years at least.
Very, very cool. Very interesting. I appreciate that information. It definitely helps out. So, one of the things I want to know a little bit about, talk to me about your new book. So, this is changing relevant or changing all the time, yet you've got a brand new book out about it, and we know books tend to get stagnant. What makes your book different and your Spark framework different than what everybody else is out there, and why is that something relevant? Because I know I have the book, by the way. It's amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
But I'm curious for our listeners, why is that relevant?
What I try to do, and I've kind of always taken this approach, is I've always disliked when I go, whether either I read a book or I go to a conference or listen to a speech, and I learn something really good, but then I'm kind of left with, okay, now what do I do?
Hmm.
Um, And there's a lot of, I think, education out there that make this point or that point, talk about that component of LLM visibility, or, is traditional SEO dead? And there's all sorts of topics and speakers and guides and what have you out there. But what I found was like there was nothing that said, okay, now this is exactly how you go and implement this into your website, into your company LLM strategy, like task by task by task. And so what I believe I attempted to do and actually delivered on was not just giving the knowledge about how these LLMs work, making the point about the statistics and how search is moving and all that. Like that knowledge is important because if you don't have that knowledge, then you really don't have any catalyst to go, well, why should I change or why should I do anything different or
Right.
why even care about this, right? But once you have the knowledge and you go, okay, I understand that, the statistics dictate that as a company owner, I must evolve here. Like I can't just keep my head in the sand. Um, but now what do I do? And so the rest of the book really is that implementable framework right into like a blueprint that has right down to the task level. So the last appendix of my book gives the readers a download link to go to my website and download a full 12 months of task lists of exactly what to do. So
Oh, wow.
there's no question mark after you read the book about now what do I do? How do I go actually implement this? How do I actually go do this to actually get results with this knowledge? And so I think that's a different approach to a book. It's not like, it's not like a fun reading fiction,
Sure. Yeah.
entertaining, type of book. This is more kind of dry, if you will, because it's all about real implementable frameworks that you can take right into your business to get results. And so, it's a nonfiction framework blueprint type of book versus that, more of a fun reading, fictional, entertaining type of story.
Very good. Very good. Well, obviously, I want to know, and I want to tell people how do people get the book? Where do they find it? If they're interested, what's that look like, Lane?
Yeah, so you can go to the sparkframework.com and I actually did what I did, Jonathan, too, is I created a couple of extra things for your audience that I
Oh,
haven't given away.
cool.
And so I'll put the link in here. The
Yeah, you want to throw it in the chat?
sparkframework.com
That'd be
is where you
great.
get the actual book, or you can go to Amazon and get the book as well. If you want a print version, it's in hardcover and paperback and Kindle. Or you can go to my website and get the ebook, like the PDF version for $5, or you can get the audiobook and the PDF for $13. So that's how you can get a copy of the book if you want a full copy of the book. Um, but I just dropped a link in chat here, the masterclass for today, an offer here. I will, and I'm also going to give just another link here, just right away here for free.
Thank you.
Um, so there's a where did I put it here? Oh, I actually closed it. So I'm going to give everybody an audit checklist that you can go through manually if you'd like to do it that way. Um, Or I've also got a tool that you can you can use called Lumerics, and it's actually there's a link to it on that link I gave. So you
I
can
saw
either do
that.
this
Okay.
check, you can either do this checklist manually, um, which I'm going to just provide this right now to everybody here. Stand
Thank
by.
you.
Or you can actually just use the software tool, which will do a lot of the heavy lifting and work for you. Um, oops, I meant sorry. Stand by.
No problem.
Uh, Zoom here now and post this in. So just make a copy of this. You know, that's the audit checklist, and this is a pretty comprehensive checklist that you can go through as an owner to just run down the checklist of how am I doing right now for LLM visibility.
Very cool.
Um, and if you, and then also if you go to that masterclass offer page and sign up there, I will send you a 7-day citation playbook. So it'll give you specific things you can do in the next 7 days to work on getting cited in the LLMs for, or at the very least, teach the LLMs about your company. Because what I find today is a lot of companies, the LLMs don't even know about it. Like they just, it's completely invisible to the LLMs. And so if you want to at least start to get your company like cited in the LLMs actually understand and connect, reproduce. Like if I go, well, who is Whitebeard Strategies? The ChatGPT will go, this is who Whitebeard is, right? If that doesn't happen today around your company, that's the first place to start. Okay. And so the first place to start is go to ChatGPT and go, who is or what is, fill in the company name. Okay. And or your personal name for that matter. Like we want the LLMs to know about us individually and our companies. And then if you don't, if it's light on what it knows or doesn't know anything at all, then that's the first place to start. Once the LLMs know about you as an individual and your company, now we can really set it into the second phase, which is the Spark framework of really building topical authority around the services or products that our companies offer so that when someone goes and just says, who are the best chiropractors around the Jacksonville area, it knows not only who the chiropractor practice is because it's been taught around that entity, but then it also knows, hey, this chiropractor is actually an authority in this space. Let's cite this chiropractor practice for that responsive query. Make sense?
So, yeah, it does. And so valuable. I love the way you've laid things out in here and kind of given us a roadmap. Plus, now we've got the checklist that we can go over to see how we're doing. I'm, of course, a nut for having ebooks and the audio. So I love that you made that available in different formats. I think that's so cool. Truly excited about that. I love that across the board. A couple other questions to wrap up, and if you guys have got something, feel free to go ahead and throw that in. But Christine is asking, we talked a little bit and used the acronyms AEO and SEO and GEO. Christine is asking, what's the difference between AEO and GEO?
Nothing really. They're just two different acronyms for two different terms that essentially mean the same thing, right? Generative engine optimization is so it's saying, well, these LLMs are generative engines, are generating responses to queries, versus AEO saying it's answer engine optimization. It's saying that these LLMs are answer engines. They're generative answer engines. And so if we use GEO or AEO, it's just two sides of the same coin. I hear the argument, well, isn't it really just doing SEO? And I can follow up with you, Jonathan, on this, and you can maybe provide this if you'd like. But I do have an SEO versus AEO matrix to show where
Hmm.
traditional SEO, these are the things that you do, these are the things that you need to do in AEO. So there are actual differences. Okay.
Okay.
There are 100% are crossover from best practices in SEO that you must continue to do if you want to do AEO or show up in the answer engines. But there are 100% new things that we must do today for AEO or slash GEO that we never had to do for SEO. And so, people who are making that comment, well, if you're doing SEO, then you're doing AEO. That is an absolutely incorrect statement to make. If you're
Okay.
doing SEO, you're doing some parts of AEO, but it is definitely not the full boat.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's good to know because I even, it seems like acronym soup to a large part to me. So I appreciate
Yeah.
some clarification there and where that fits in. That's hugely beneficial. So, well, we've got a number of comments coming in about people saying how great this has been, all the value. Lane, if people have got questions and they want to reach out or learn more about you, other than getting the book, what's the best step for them to connect with you?
Yeah, if you go to my book page on the contact page, I've got all the ways to connect with me. So just hit my contact page there. Or you can go to lanehouk.com, which is my personal website. Also a great way to, there's contact information there for me as well. But would happy to be, to be a resource for you and your audience, Jonathan, and around this. Um, and one last thing before I forget, if anyone today joins Lumerics, use the tool to do the audit instead of having to do it manually. I will add an extra 25 credits into their account, $25 worth of credits in their account for free, just so they can do some extra scans and use the tool. It is a new tool, so it's in beta. So if you do find some things that aren't working, please let me know. But it's by and large is working to do a good, complete website and brand footprint scan. And you can actually put in LLM queries up to five.
Oh, wow,
Um,
cool.
and then it'll query ChatGPT and Perplexity and see, and then find out is your entity or company actually cited in the results or responses for those queries. So it's a pretty cool tool. And yeah, I would love to just support you and the audience in any the questions that they have going forward.
Well, Lane, I want to thank you for your time today. You've graciously shared just tons of value with us. And, yeah, shameless plug, guys. Lane's wrote a great book. Support him if you found this valuable. The books, the ebooks, what would you say, like $9? And
Five.
the ebook and audio is 13, and then the book itself is like $20. So, if you guys like this, definitely do that. You will, so oftentimes I'm amazed we as consultants often, and many of us in the audience are consultants, we sell our time for a lot more money. But yet when somebody like Lane puts out a book like this, if you're willing to put in a little bit of time to read the book, and hint with the ebook, if it's a PDF, you could use AI to help you use that. You can go ahead and then leverage some of that and get a lot of that knowledge for just pennies. So I just want to encourage you guys. I'm not making a penny from selling this book. That's not why I brought Lane on. Lane's been a friend and a mentor for many years. And I just wanted to add some value to the community about this confusing topic of AEO, SEO, GEO, you name it. And I think Lane did a marvelous job with that. Lane, any parting words that you want to leave the audience with as we wrap things up?
No, I think we've really covered a pretty good, primer or summary around what we need to do as business owners and or
Yep.
agency owners today. It's definitely, I would say, like to your point, Jonathan, take time and study this topic. Don't just
Yeah.
dive in and start doing. Understand how LLMs work. And so, that either the book or you can get your own resources, but understand how the LLMs work. Take an hour or two to let your brain understand these things, ingest it, because the more you understand on the topic, the better your implementation will be too. Like it's don't just take some things and go out and start doing it. Understand why we're doing it. And that'll
Right.
give greater context to it, and also it'll just your implementation will be much better that way as well.
No, great advice. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We value you guys. We really appreciate it. Let me know, though. I'd love to know. We would love to know to serve the audience. If you like sessions like this, where we're bringing in experts like Lane to share value, give me an expert in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to know that this is valuable to you. And we can keep doing things like this. We've got plenty of opportunities, but I like to know that it's adding value. It looks like more than a doubt. There's definitely a lot of people there telling us they love this. So Lane, thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
everybody
you
for
bet.
joining us.
Thanks,
If I
Jonathan.
don't see you, have an amazing holiday season and a Merry Christmas, and we will chat with everybody soon. Take care,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.